Okay, so as a test, I went ahead and created a brand new profile in Simplify3D version 5. So I gave it the same name as the other one, except I put a v5 at the end. And we're going to be saving these in a separate directory, so we don't get confused about which ones are version 5 and which ones aren't. I'm hoping in the future they'll be able to migrate. They'll work out all their bugs. I think what they did was they did some testing, but I don't think they really tested it well enough, the migration well enough. They could have solicited test files from customers, but I don't think they did. I'm not sure how they generated their test file for migration, but based on the support forum at Simplify3D, it sounds like the support team that's on there says, okay, well, just send us your profile, and then we'll figure out what the problem is, and then they're using that as their beta testing. That's my impression about what's going on. So eventually they'll work through all the bugs, and it should work better over time. So anyway, so this is our profile. So I had a default to PTG, and one difference what I was using before is this has a default retraction speed of 1800. And if we look at what I had on my version 4 version, I only had 1200. I probably copied this from a PLA profile. I don't remember at this point. So there is more problems with stringing with PTG. So I'm going to try using this 1800. And if it works well on this model, then I'll go ahead and make that my default. So I think it defaulted to manual extrusion width, which is what version 4 did. But I found over time, unless you have some details, really important details you need, it's better to use the automatic extrusion width with this 0.48. Your prints will print faster by a significant amount, minutes and whatever, depending on how long it is, of course. So again, it defaulted to 4.0, but if you put on automatic, it does 4.48. So for this thing, I don't really care how well these numbers show up. Particularly, I just want to see, is it doing the bridging correctly without sagging, and is it doing this little pointy thing? Those are the main things I'm looking for this print at the different temperatures. Okay, and then the layers. This is pretty much the same as the other one, but again, the default for PTG on version 5 is 50% for the first layer. And I've been using 35%. So not sure. I'm going to try it for this print. And I think I tried 50% before with PTG, and it's too fast. It doesn't adhere very well to the bed. So, but for this print, this is the test print. I'll just go ahead and try 50% and see if it works. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm 99% sure I tried that, and it just doesn't adhere to the first. You need the first layer to adhere, obviously, and if it doesn't, then you have a problem. The other difference is I have 110% for my first layer usually for most filaments. So I'm going to go ahead and change that over here too. It has a little bit of a bump out on the first layer, but that doesn't really affect what I'm printing, so I'd rather have it adhere better. Okay, and then optimize. Yeah, optimize is the same. And restrict start points to preferred regions. So I'm not sure what that does. Oh yeah, this is a new feature of version 5 that's supposed to minimize print defects. So we'll see how that works. One of the sabak pot tray I showed before had some problems with print defects. So I ended up picking a specific location to print from. So if I put this on, yeah, it still lets me do that. So I'll go ahead and use my, for that project, I'll use my setting, and then I'll do this too and see if it comes out any different. Okay, so then additions. This defaults to using a skirter brim, which I occasionally use that to, if I need something that has a really crisp edge on it, I'll do a brim around, or a skirt around it. But usually I turn that off, just waste time. And only a few projects that are narrow and tall do I use a raft. So I turned that off. The default was use a skirt or brim. A lot of printers use that. A lot of slicers, put a brim around it. I find it just wastes time. So infill, this is slightly different on the new one. So the old one, you could specify specific angles, which was pretty handy. What they did instead here is they let you change the internal pattern rotation. So if you have rectilinear, normally it's going to do 45, 45, but if you want to do it 0, 90, you have to put those numbers in over here. Here you can just rotate it. So it's a little bit different way to do it, slightly simpler because you don't need to provide two numbers, you just provide one number. So most of my infill is rectilinear, but like I said, for some projects I'm using a three-dimensional, which I think is a gyroid. So that was the one I had to use for FlashForge with. So that's not this project. So we're just going to use rectilinear, which is the default. And these percentages are the same. 20% infill is fine. And we're not using combined infill on this project. Although one thing that was interesting with FlashPrint was it seemed like it was printing everything faster. And I found out, eventually figured out that the reason is because it defaults to combining two layers on infill. That makes your prints go a lot faster. So I'm using that selectively on a lot of my projects now to speed things up. But for this project, it's not worth it, so I'm not going to do it. And this is a new feature over here where if it has really small infill regions, it'll just go ahead and do a solid infill, so that's kind of nice. That allows you to fix some potential problems in how the slicing works without creating a separate layer just for that little area. Now supports here, you could just turn off support. And we'll see in a minute that when I try to print this over here, it's going to say, hey, you need supports, which you have these bridges here. So technically you would need supports unless it could do bridging well. And but there's no way to just turn it off. So there may be some way to change something here. I don't see anything. Yeah, I don't see any way to say don't bother me about supports. There's no way to turn it off. So maybe I'll have to look up and see if there's some way to do that. I'm not sure. So temperature. So we're printing PETG. So for build platform, I use 65 degrees is working for me on my Guider 2 and also before the Dreamer NX. So that's the temperature I use for all my PETG projects. Seem to adhere well to that FlashForge sticker. And then for the doing a temperature tower, you need to have these different layers. So this is one feature of Simplify3D that makes it really easy to do these layers. You can do it in other slicers, is my understanding, but this is the most straightforward way to do it. You just tell it what layer you want to change the temperature. It automatically puts that in the G code. So this is what I had before. So I just copied that over manually. Cool down extruder while idle. Yeah, we're not going to do that. So, and cooling, the default over here was 100% at layer 2. For PTG on my printers, I found a 10% cooling at layer 2 works better. So just going to do that. And then for speeds, it does some others. These are slightly out of order, different order. So it defaults to 3,000 millimeters per minute, which is what I found I can print PTG at. So that's the same. It did have 4,800 for XY speed, and I've been using 6,000 to help reduce stringing. So I'm going to stick with that. My printer seems to be able to handle that speed. These speed overrides, there's some other newer overrides here. So this one is the one. I haven't really messed with this, and it looks like it's working okay. So now output, so there's no output over here, but output is where you set your, you can change your printer parameters, the build volume. So over here, that's under G code. And it's got this firmware and baud rate. So this is kind of a throwback to older communication systems. G-code options, it's doing some options you can do. Oh, yeah, this is the same thing here. Now this is interesting. So This doesn't have a way, as far as I remember, I was able to find, to put out GX files. So GX files, I believe, include a thumbnail. So when you look at them on the FlashForge printer, they'll show a little thumbnail what you're printing, so which is kind of nice. So I'll go ahead and use this. Usually I just use G-code. So you can do .G-code if you want, but FlashForge has a special GX version. So we're going to use that. Why not? All these other parameters are the same. Yeah, so I had to put these in manually when I migrated to the G2, but now, since I used my machine configuration wizard I showed you earlier, I think it was the configuration wizard. I was able to specify this printer, it automatically knew to do this, so that was nice. Okay, and then script. So scripts over here. This is the script I was using. I'm going to try this script and see how it works. Looks like it's okay. It's going to put a line at the front of the printer to like a purge line. So that's good. Then speeds, we already looked at that. Yeah, we already looked at that speed. So other. So oh, I see here. Maybe if I turn this off. If I turn this off, it may not ask me about. It may not ask me about supports. Let's try that. I didn't try that before. Then advanced. I found that where it works the best for me is allow single extrusion walls and allow gap fill. That seems to do the best printing. These other parameters are all the same. Yeah. Wipe outer perimeters. Yeah. So these are all the same. So we'll go ahead and save this. Update this. If we have a problem with this bridging, because I wanted to actually do the bridging, so we'll see if it still thinks that it needs supports. Yeah, so it's still telling me that it needs supports. So we wanted to identify bridging areas, and I'll show you how that works over here. So you just have to ignore this. Maybe there's some way to turn it off. But when you do bridging, when you do the first layer of the bridge, see it does this yellow, which is the bridge. So see the bridging over here has a key. If you turn that off, it puts these lines out, then it does a little zigzag across instead, like it does for the next layer. It's got a lot of empty space there. That's unfortunate. You can see there's a lot of empty space here. Let's try modifying this slightly. Let's put this at 1. Just for fun, I'm going to put this at 120 and see if we can notice a difference. And that bridging. No. It's going to be annoying to say no on that every time. Didn't really made any difference, so I'm not going to do that. Huh. Okay, so it realized I set it back to what it was before, so that's interesting. Okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and say we're going to print this. So we're going to call this V5, so we don't get it mixed up with the other one. And if we say print, no. So this says it's going to take 46 minutes. And if you remember from before, I said it was going to take 44 minutes. So this is actually a more accurate, I believe more accurate. Now it says it's actually going to take more material. It's possible because of some of the other slicing things, like it's going to when it gets close to a surface, it might put in extra support. It's hard to see it doing that exactly, but when it gets close to a surface, and you have 20% infill, it's supposed to go to 50%. So that's probably a little bit more material there. So we may or may not turn, for most models, you may turn that off, because I don't think I really need that. Unless I have some tricky printing, I may end up turning that off. So if you look over here again, infill. Yeah, so, well, there's this one, but there's also here, dense infill. I don't think we had that over here. Yeah, so on version, this is the version 4 on the left here. There's no dense internal infill, so. Okay, now this is set at 0, so it's not doing that. Okay. All right, so if I have it set at 0, I'm assuming it doesn't do anything. So I think it's missing. It doesn't have this internal solid diaphragm, which I use that quite a bit actually on really tall things. Oh, here's the solid diaphragm over here. Okay, all right. And actually, you can specify how many layers, how many solid diaphragm layers you want. Okay, so that's new. It just moved it over here. Okay. All right, we're not going to do that for this project. Obviously, it doesn't need. It's not that tall. So, all right. So we'll see. No. So the time. I see the time is more accurate. I'm skeptical that it's going to take this much material because the other one. The other one says only 4.96, and this says 5.22, so it's about a quarter more grams to print this than the other one. So we'll see what happens. That's interesting. Huh. So you can see this, it's got this, look at that side of that thing when it's slicing it. Let's look at the other one. Here's this one. I guess it is doing it. Okay, never noticed that before. So the way those numbers are a little bit too big for that area, and they're going off the end, it looks like. So, okay. Never noticed that. All right, so we'll go ahead and print this. I'm not going to bother the time lapse because I've shown a bunch of these. So this is just a test of this. And we'll, I'm not going to try to measure the exact grams. I don't have an empty reel for that filaments. I couldn't give you, and measuring to a quarter of a gram is probably not going to be that easy either. So we'll have to do it on a bigger project like the sabak pot tray, and we'll see how much filament it actually uses. Alright, let's see how it turned out. The string on the last poke, last pointy thing, which we expected, so. Alright, so you can see 240 or 239 has got a lot of sagging. So 237 looks like it'll work fine. There's some teeny bit of sag here. This one looks like it's slightly under extruded, so I'm going to go with 237 like all of our other PETGs. So that's good news. So this has got good, except for the base here that always comes off. But all these layers have good layer adhesion. So since I've had so much success with those settings, I'm just going to go ahead and go directly to my product. So I'll show the final result. I'll skip the bed and layer adhesion test because the bed adhesion was fine at that 65 degrees with this removable print bed. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Post a comment if you have any questions or ideas, and I'll try to respond. That's all for now, but more videos are coming, and if you want to see them, please subscribe to my channel and turn on the notification icon if you don't want to miss one. This is Beta Cygni signing out, and keep looking up.